Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. War in Ukraine is increasingly defined by long-range drone strikes inside Russia, persistent nuclear tensions around Zaporizhzhia, and growing political spillover into sport and European diplomacy. Now, Ukraine operations have reportedly hit energy infrastructure across multiple Russian regions, while competing claims continue around the safety and control of Europe's largest nuclear power plant. And joining us now is Stepan Rusyn, program coordinator at the Transatlantic Dialogue Center, to discuss it further. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Sasha. Thank you for having me.
So let's look at some of these recent occurrences, deep strikes by Ukraine into Russian facilities, Saratov, Kirov, Zaporizhzhia, Rostov. So I'm just curious, we've covered it before, but is this now an effective strategy by Ukraine? How materially impactful are these strikes on Russian facilities?
They already have quite a big impact on gasoline supply inside of Russia. We have seen reports over the past days with the long lines on petrol stations and problems for, first of all, Russian civilian population in getting access to petroleum. It has not yet impacted the Russian military operation, but the overall aim is first to have a big economic impact, and oil and oil products being one of the engines of the Russian economies. And second is to have an impact also on Russian military operations. And it's given the scale and amount of that oil infrastructure in Russia, it's still early to say that it has some big effect on the battlefield, but the overall Ukrainian strategy is over the coming months to increase the pressure and to create favorable circumstances, favorable environment for the peace talks that at some point have to come.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the same time, I mean, this is, as you said, starting to take a toll on Russia's income to an extent. We still need some more data. But still, if we're looking also at the way Ukraine is doing this, right? I mean, these are generally low-cost drones, effectively giving them a whole host of options. So what do you think then, if this continues this way, 3 months, 6 months down the line, will that start to impact, let's say, Russian military logistics as well?
There is already a big campaign carried out by Ukrainian armed forces over the past 2 months targeting military logistics specifically. We are using actively drones to dominate the air domain over the main logistical lines in occupied territories of Ukraine. And over the past months, only what we can tell on the basis of open source data, there were more than 200 strikes on Russian military logistics in these territories. And as of now, we see a lot of complaining on the side of the Russian military bloggers and journalists. But overall, Ukrainian consensus among the military community is that for it to have a big impact, it has to be a continuous operation. So it's now difficult to tell because war is always changing, and it's very likely that at some point the Russian armed forces will find a counteraction to this Ukrainian tactics. But as of now, it's working, and the recent decision by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense to increase the funding for the units that carry out those type of attacks dramatically is a way to try to maximize this impact in this window of opportunity when the Russian armed forces have not figured out how to counteract.
Mm-hmm. Also, back to the oil revenue as well, something that's just happened this past Sunday, actually, is according to President Macron of France, that apparently the French Navy off the coast of Brittany has now boarded an oil tanker apparently linked to Russia coming out of Murmansk. trying to circumnavigate sanctions. So this is something that's just happened this past Sunday. What do you make of it? I mean, are we going to see more of these types of actions by the French, by other European leaders? I mean, the British have promised the same, but they haven't done this yet.
As of now, it's just France and Belgium that did it this year, and Sweden. Only these three countries that are open to hunting the Russian Shadow Fleet in North Sea and the Baltic Sea, respectively. It could have been a bigger campaign, I assume, if there would have not been a war between the United States and Iran. European countries are still quite cautious on disrupting Russian oil trade, being fearful of consequences for its own markets that are now also experiencing an increase in prices. So I would assume that for now it's gonna be case by case basis. Only when there is a ship or a company that is explicitly violating sanctions, and that hurts the interests of those states. But as long as the war against Iran is looming and it is possible, I would guess that Europeans will not be that active as they could have been. And another way around is to implement a new sanction package on the level of the EU, namely the ban on maritime services for the ships transporting Russian oil in the European jurisdiction. But so far, the idea was to include it into the 20th package of sanctions, which was at that time blocked by the previous Hungarian government, and there were reservations by countries like Malta and Greece that continued to ship Russian oil within the price cap. But now, most likely, that there are speculations, deliberation that this has to be included in the next 21st package of sanctions. But again, we are to expect some kind of counter action by these countries that are still profiting from it. So this European action against Russian oil is still has a room to improve.
All right, but still significant that the French have done that, as you mentioned, some of the other countries. Let's stick to energy, but I want to switch over now in a different form of energy and go to Zaporizhzhia, the nuclear power plant in Ukraine, the largest in Europe, currently under military occupation. Now, we're hearing two different versions. Apparently, the Russians are accusing the Ukrainians of having struck it. The Ukrainians are saying, no, that's disinformation. I mean, what is the reality there on the ground? I mean, according to the IAEA, I mean, Zaporizhzhia suffered, I think, 16 power cuts since the war began. So what do you make of the latest?
It's a big part of a bigger communication campaign by the Russian side. They have to somehow reply to the existing estimations by the International Atomic Energy Agency that Russia is not as a responsible actor in a nuclear field as it has to be as one of the board members of this organization, with active attacks against substations powering Ukrainian nuclear plants, with the last year attack on Chernobyl safe confinement object. And this is the way to show that maybe like we are not the only bad actor here. Ukrainians are doing the same. So it's trying to equalize the victim and aggressor in a broader communicational term. And Russia is also actively pursuing now the goal of connecting the Zaporizhzhia power plant to its Russian-controlled power grid and to relaunch the nuclear power plant. And here, although the position of the international community is that it's now being in a cold shutdown and it has to stay this way, being connected to Ukrainian grid, Russians upon the background of these attacks, they can claim, okay, it's now not safe. The existing situation when it's connected only to Ukrainian power grid, it's not safe for the station itself. And now we'll take care of it as a responsible actor. And I assume that in the coming weeks, months, they will continue playing this card.
All right. Speaking of playing this card, playing sports as well, there's now this case of this Ukrainian tennis player, Ms. Alexandra Olenkyova, calling for sanctions against Diana Schneider for participating in Russian-based events. What do you make of this? I mean, where we are with this in Russia and sports and Ukraine? Give us just a quick sentence on that.
The Ukrainian position is that Russia's participation in international sports events also legitimates the aggression of Russia against Ukraine and is used as a way to showcase Russia as a peaceful sporting nation. That is not true from Ukraine's point of view. And that's where all the Ukrainian, I would say, lobbying efforts are aiming at to prevent Russia from participating under official flag in world competitions, Europe competitions, in Olympic Games, Paralympic Games, and now the debate is also about individual athletes taking part in international competition, because as in this specific case, there is evidence that the Russian athlete took part in an event sponsored by Gazprom, which is considered one of the main sponsors of the Russian war machine. And therefore, the line of argumentation is that it's not, in this case, athlete is not neutral, and being affiliated with the Russian state enterprise that should disqualify this person from then participating as a Russian representative in international sports events.
All right, so various threads there, all about the war in Ukraine and Russia. Thanks so much for that. Really appreciate insights there. That was Stepan Rusyn from the Transatlantic Dialogue Center. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.